How's it going, everyone? I hope you're all doing good. I want to spend some time today talking about procrastination because it's something that I think a lot of you will be able to relate to. We all do it, right? In fact, some of you watching are probably doing it right now. You're on YouTube watching videos when you know you have work to be doing. In which case, stop watching right now and do your work. I'm joking, at least watch this video first and then do your work because, well, you might learn something. And if you do learn something, then at least you are procrastinating in a more productive manner, as opposed to watching epic fail compilations or whatever else. I guess that's something to make note of. If you are going to procrastinate, at least do it productively. And that's pretty contradictive. Anyways, let's start by answering a simple question: what is procrastination? According to Google, it's the habit of delaying an important task, usually by focusing on less urgent, more enjoyable, and easier activities instead. I also saw an article that stated procrastination is not laziness, which is the unwillingness to act, and I think it's important to define that difference. Because that's what makes procrastination so deadly. It isn't just lazy people who fall prey to it, it's everyone, even those who act with intention and who strive to be productive. It can sneak up on you without you even realising. Now, in regards to its definition, when we procrastinate, we are delaying an important task by doing something that is less important and often meaningless. And for most of us, this is usually because the task we should be doing is a lot of the time more of a challenge. You know, it might be one of those tasks which you think about the night before when you're trying to get to sleep. It might not even be more challenging, it could simply be something that is less satisfying to do, perhaps due to the fact that it isn't as stimulating to do. One example might be choosing to play video games or watch Netflix over writing an essay that you know you need to do. In that case, not only is it easier to avoid the essay with those mindless activities, it's also more gratifying in the moment, at least until you remind yourself that you have an essay to write after binge watching a full series of a TV show. You see, a lot of the time we procrastinate on the things we know we should do, the things that will benefit us and improve our lives. And I'm no stranger to this experience, an example being the content that I'm tasked with creating each week. You see, I love to do all of this, but that doesn't mean that I'm not a victim of procrastination. In fact, because I understand the importance in doing all of this, it means I'm more likely to procrastinate. There's a saying which comes to mind, which is, "You are your worst enemy," but I've discovered a means of fighting back, and it's one which I'll discuss in this video. It doesn't mean, however, that it will work for you because we are all different. Nobody knows you better than you do, and sometimes you have to be honest with yourself and stop making the excuses. I don't know about you, but when I put off the tasks that I know I should do, I never feel good about it. It stays in my head, and instead I'm just thinking about doing it rather than doing it. For example, let's say I choose to play a video game instead of planning this week's YouTube video. For me, it means I can't enjoy playing that game as much because in the back of my mind, I keep reminding myself that I have that video to plan. It's really not as pleasant as doing the work first and then rewarding yourself with the time to then do what you want to do. There's a book called The War of Art by a man named Steven Pressfield which comes to mind each time I talk about procrastination, and it's a book that I recommend to anyone who struggles with this, which is probably all of us, right? In this book, Pressfield essentially talks about procrastination but gives it a new title. You see, he calls it resistance, a concept that illustrates this universal force that he claims acts against human creativity. It's a force that always exists, and so our only solution, hence the name of the book, is to go to war with it. We need to overcome resistance to be the person that we want to be. And so in his book, he details that process by giving examples and discussing his own experience as a writer. Now, there's no easy solution to overcoming resistance, but there are still solutions, and he explains his solution through sharing his daily routine. He gets up, gets dressed, goes about doing whatever he does, and then at 10:30 AM he sits down at his computer and writes for about 4 hours. He says that it doesn't matter if the pages he wrote were any good, the only thing that matters is that he won the battle against resistance that day because he put in his time and showed up. He says, and I quote, "The most important thing about art is to work. Nothing else matters except sitting down every day and trying." He also gives a rule of thumb, which is the more scared we are of the work or a calling, the more sure we can be that we have to do it. He says that resistance is experienced as fear, and to put it simply, if the work we had to do meant nothing to us, there would be no resistance. There's a lot of points made in this book which had an effect on me and many others. It's resistance that you have to deal with each day, and Pressfield does so by sitting down to work regardless of the result. So beating resistance means doing the work, and doing the work for me also means sitting down at my desk, but unlike Stephen Pressfield, I'm not writing. Actually, I do write out the scripts for my videos, and you'd actually be surprised at how much writing I do, but in addition to that, I of course have a lot of artwork to create, and I also don't want to understate the importance of the other tasks I need to somehow get myself to do. The tasks involved in also having the responsibility to produce content each week. I do all of this on my own, and so I also need to find the time to also edit these videos, make thumbnails, and do all of the social media stuff on the side. A lot happens at my desk, and so it's very important for me to make sure that I'm sat here doing something each day. So I'll also share my daily routine with you as a means of me explaining how I overcome resistance. Now, to give some context, I also have a day job. As many of you will know, I am a practicing architect and I work a typical 9 to 5, 5 days a week, sometimes more if we are busy. It might also be worth mentioning that I'm also in a relationship, and it goes without saying that a relationship also demands some of your time, at least if you want it to be a good one, right? And so to find the time to work on my art and produce what I do, I depend on the time that I have in the morning. Now, right away you might assume that that's not a lot of time, but that depends on what time you wake up, and also on the time you have to stop working and set off to work in order to get there at 9 AM. Now, I've always been a morning person, at least I tell myself that whilst struggling to get out of bed each day. I wake up at 4:45 AM, which I know for many people sounds way too early, but I also go to bed at around 9 PM, and so I'm still getting plenty of sleep, because sleep is important, and if you don't get enough of it, then it's actually counterproductive, but that's a completely different discussion. Anyways, once I'm up, I make a coffee and I'm sat down at my desk at around 5 AM. That's why I wake up 15 minutes earlier, so I can be at my desk for 5. So now I'm at my desk and I have around 3 hours to do the work that I have to do. I tend to finish at around 8 AM to get ready and go to work, to do my day job, so I aim to work close to 3 hours a day on all of this. Sometimes more or less on the weekend. I mean, on the weekend, I do tend to be more laid back. I don't usually wake up that early on a Saturday and a Sunday, unless I am behind on what I have to do, because I do think that you can overdo it and start to resent what you do if you don't allow yourself time to relax. Also, in relevance to the subject of this video, you'll probably be more inclined to procrastinate. Anyways, because I'm aware that I only have 3 hours to do what I need to do, I tend to be very efficient with my time. At least I'd like to think I am. I think I've mentioned before, I tend to plan and write down a to-do list the night before, so that I don't have to spend too much time thinking about what I should do when I sit down at my desk in the morning. And that's a very good way to avoid procrastinating as well, by planning out what to do so that you aren't just mindlessly doing something. In fact, I'd like to reference another book that has had an effect on how I schedule my day. It's a book called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. And in this book, he discusses the importance of starting your day with the biggest, most important and dreaded task, the one that you are most likely to procrastinate on. And so that's where it gets its name from, Eat That Frog, because nobody wants to eat a frog, right? Unless I think in France it's frog's legs that are quite a delicacy, but regardless, it's a metaphor for effective time management. I think there was a quote from Mark Twain. He said, "Eat a live frog first thing in the morning and nothing worse will happen to you for the rest of the day." And so I started putting this into practice. Not literally eating a frog, but always starting my day by doing what I know I'm most likely to avoid doing. And it's always going to be something important, like for me, it might be writing a script and planning a video. Obviously without a script, there'd be no commentary, and I'd love to just have it easy and be able to only draw and that's it, but it's these other tasks that are essential when it comes to the content I make. So that's how I tend to avoid procrastination and also find the time to do all of this. I can't emphasize enough how important those 3 hours each morning are to me. I mean, without them, I wouldn't get anything done. I also think there'd be little benefit in working more, even if I had an option to, because it's knowing that I only have so long to do what I need to do that creates urgency and forces me to be efficient. There's something called Parkinson's Law, which is the old adage that work expands to fill the time allotted, and from experience, I can't disagree. I used to have all day to do what I needed to do, and so I'd go about it in a more relaxed manner. I'd procrastinate because I had the time to procrastinate, whereas now I only have a set amount of time, so I best get out of bed and get to work. I think I've covered a lot in this one, and so to avoid rambling on about everything, I'll summarise how I avoid procrastination and give some tips to help you as well. So, tip 1, plan your day ahead and create a to-do list so that you can act rather than think. Be as detailed as you want when making a to-do list. Clarity is important to avoid you making momentary decisions and wasting time. Tip 2, eat that frog. Do the most important, challenging task first. It's the one that'll create the most resistance, so get it out of the way and the rest of your day will be easier. And finally, tip 3, allocate some time to create and be specific about it. State a set time that cannot be expendable and realise that you only have that time to do what you need to do. And those are 3 tips that I think are essential when it comes to being productive and avoiding procrastination. I hope you enjoyed this one and found it helpful. If you did, then be sure to give the video a like. With that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the content I create, then do consider becoming a patron on Patreon. You will gain access to exclusive tutorials, study documents, process papers, real-time drawing footage and more. Plus you will also be supporting me in a more personal way. Other than that, thank you for watching this video and I'll see you soon.